Welcome to Year in Review, the show where we break down a year to bring you some of the most notable moments in TV and film, month by month. Today, we're talking about 1979, a year when disco peaked, the 80s lurked, and McDonald's introduced the Happy Meal. It was a good year for house cleaning because both the Dustbuster and Sony Walkman were introduced to the world. But it was an even better year for entertainment. The ESPN and Nickelodeon networks both launched, and shows like Three's Company, MASH, and Dallas dominated the ratings. But some good old boys who are never meaning no harm were just revving up their engine. Movies were boldly going where men had gone before, just bigger and brighter this time, with an alien, a boxer, a jerk, and some Muppets along for the ride too. So pause the tape on your Walkman and stop dust busting between those couch cushions, cause it's time for your Year in Review 1979 edition. Launching on January 26th like a '69 Charger off a perfectly shaped dirt mound was The Dukes of Hazzard, a series that would go on to air for 147 episodes over 7 seasons. It centers around cousins Bo and Luke Duke, who are on probation in rural Georgia for running moonshine. Along with friends and other family members like cousin Daisy Duke and Uncle Jesse, they spend most of their time evading corrupt law officers Boss Hogg and Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane.
They're right in front of me, Sheriff.
No, we got him! We got him!
Hang on, cousin.
Perhaps the biggest star of the show was the Duke Boys car, a customized 1969 Dodge Charger nicknamed the General Lee. And with doors that didn't open, it made every kid of the era wish they were allowed to enter mom and dad's car through the window. And the theme song, sung by country star Waylon Jennings, who was also the series narrator, is about as iconic as theme songs can get. It's definitely worth a listen, or a re-listen, after this show is over, of course.
No matter what he says, nobody lip off. Nobody get hot. I'm gonna see what I can do.
When did you turn into a f***ing diplomat?
Yeah, you ain't exactly the State Department type.
Fox, you come with me.
Arriving in theaters on February 9th, 1979 was The Warriors, about a turf battle that rages between fictitious New York City street gangs from the Bronx all the way to Coney Island. Production, and later the film's release, was marred with vandalism and violence given that real gangs in the area were upset that they weren't involved. And then, after the release, rival gangs all started showing up to the same theaters to watch it, so yeah, you get it.
60,000 soldiers. Now there ain't but 20,000 police in the whole town. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
But despite that and an initial negative reception, this now certified fresh film has grown into a cult classic, spawning things like video games and a comic book series. Critics say, as violent as it is stylish, The Warriors is a thrilling piece of pulp filmmaking.
Picking up rising missiles now. They're just clearing the planet's atmosphere and entering the ionosphere.
Computron readout shows them to be armed devices of some nuclear type.
We've got to destroy them, Commander. They're going to blow each other up.
Battle stations. Stand by, force shields.
Force shield standing by.
Maximum laser power standby.
Laser power standing by.
Heading now to April 29th, 1979, and the finale of the original Battlestar Galactica. This series followed the crew of the only surviving battleship after an attack by a robotic alien race as they hurry to find a new home on a legendary but unknown planet known as Earth. The series was canceled after just 24 episodes, but at that point, the fan base was there. A write-in campaign revived the eventual franchise the following year with Galactica 1980, which ran for 10 episodes.
Switch to attack computer frequency. No flashing red dot. Activate laser guns.
No, sir, don't fire. It's them.
How do you know?
They're waggling. Waggling?
Battlestar Galactica was later remade in the early 2000s, first as a reimagined miniseries and later as a weekly series, paving the way for more spin-off series and made-for-TV movies, plus the usual books, games, comic books, and more that go with a full-on sci-fi franchise. Critics say, bearing an unflattering resemblance to another space opera set in a galaxy far, far away, Battlestar Galactica offers little more than cutting-edge visual effects.
Cheer up, Lionel. Chow's on. Stay put, right where you are.
Also ending its run in 1979 was the cop drama series Starsky and Hutch, with the final airing on May 15th after 4 seasons and 93 episodes in total. The series follows 2 detectives, Starsky and Hutch, as they solve crimes with the help of an informant named Huggy Bear while hanging around the fictional town of Bay City, California.
You sure you want to do that?
Yes, I'm sure.
You sure you don't want me to take just one little peek underneath that hood?
If you don't get in this car right now after all the things I've said, I'm gonna leave alone.
That's what I'm afraid of. Straight up and in about 1,000,000 pieces.
Starsky and Hutch also features yet another iconic TV vehicle with its red and white Ford Gran Torino, originally intended to be a green and white Camaro before Ford stepped in. And of course the car has lived on in the 2004 money-making remake film starring Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson.
Southpaw jinx nothing. Last time I took the fight too lightly and this man was just plain lucky. But this time you all will see the real Apollo Creed. The whole world's gonna see the real Apollo Creed. Lightning fast and hard to catch. No playing, no jiving, just business.
Rocky, do you think you have a chance this time against Apollo?
I don't know, he looks pretty mad.
Entering the ring on June 15th in 1979 was the boxing film Rocky II, with Sylvester Stallone reprising his titular role from the 1976 sleeper hit Rocky. This time around, Rocky Balboa, struggling to adjust to family life, is lured into a rematch demanded by Apollo Creed, whom Rocky nearly beat in the first film. Rocky II, which began the trend of Stallone also directing the Rocky movies to go along with writing them, was another big hit for the now franchise as it became the 3rd highest grossing film of the year in the US.
Except for my kid being born. It's the greatest night in the history of my life. I just want to say one thing to my wife who's home. Yo, Adrian! I did it!
Numerous sequels followed, eventually evolving into a couple of spin-off films based on Apollo Creed's son, all part of a franchise that has become a total box office knockout. Adrian! Critics say Rocky II is a movie that dares you to root again for the ultimate underdog, and succeeds due to an infectiously powerful climax. Also making contact in June of '79 was the sci-fi horror flick Alien, about the crew of a commercial starship who are stalked by a deadly life form that has joined them for a ride. The film was directed by Ridley Scott and marked Sigourney Weaver's first lead role. Scott said that the role of Ripley came down to Weaver and Meryl Streep, with Weaver ultimately winning the job. Alien was a commercial success and launched a media franchise that includes novels, comic books, video games, toys, and more films, like sequels, prequels, and even a crossover with the Predator franchise. Plus, the very certified fresh film, which won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, has cemented a legacy as one of the best science fiction horror films of all time, even being selected for preservation in the United States Film Registry. Critics say, a modern classic, Alien blends science fiction, horror, and bleak poetry into a seamless whole.
I'm Stetler.
I'm Waldorf. We're here to heckle a Muppet movie.
Gentlemen, that's straight ahead. Private screening, room D.
Private screening?
Yeah, they're afraid to show it in public.
Oh! Oh, look at this place. What a dump.
Hitting theaters on June 22nd of 1979 was The Muppet Movie, the first theatrical film in Jim Henson's Muppets franchise. This musical comedy tells the origin story of the Muppets, with Kermit the Frog setting out on a cross-country journey to Los Angeles in search of success in show business and picking up other like-minded Muppets along the way.
Where are you going?
We're following our dream.
Really? I have a dream too.
Huh?
But you'll think it's stupid.
No, tell us.
Well, I want to go to Bombay, India and become a movie star.
You don't go to Bombay to become a movie star. You go where we're going, Hollywood.
Sure, if you want to do it the easy way.
We picked up a weirdo.
The movie, produced by Henson, featured several cameos from stars like Steve Martin, Mel Brooks, and Orson Welles. And to go along with its certified fresh status, the Muppet Movie picked up 2 Oscars for the score and the song Rainbow Connection, and led to several movies and series across various media featuring the Muppets. My favorite is The Muppet Babies. Critics say, The Muppet Movie, the big screen debut of Jim Henson's plush creations, is smart, lighthearted, and fun for all ages.
Over there. You missed, Mr. Bond. Did I? As you said, such good sport.
Stirring, not shaking things up on June 29, 1979, was the 11th film in the James Bond series, Moonraker, and the 4th to star Roger Moore as the popular MI6 agent. This time around, James Bond makes his way into outer space while investigating the hijacking of an American space shuttle, and eventually finds himself in a fight to save all of mankind. Inspired by a boosted interest in the sci-fi genre at the time, mostly thanks to Star Wars, this film ended up with a budget twice the size of the Bond film before it.
It's entering the Earth's atmosphere. James, this is our last chance.
Steady.
But that paired with a poor reception from critics, it ranks 20th out of 27 on our list of Bond films ranked by Tomatometer, didn't stop it from making a huge payday at the box office, becoming the highest grossing film in the franchise up until 1995's GoldenEye. Critics say, featuring one of the series' most ludicrous plots but outfitted with primo gadgets and spectacular sets, Moonraker is both silly and entertaining. Scaring its way into theaters on July 27th in 1979 was the Amityville Horror, based on the 1977 book of the same name, and the first film about the modern folktale that allegedly took place in Amityville, New York in 1974. The film follows a young couple, played by James Brolin and Margot Kidder, who are terrorized by supernatural forces after buying a new home that was the scene of a recent mass killing. This kind of seems like they were asking for it.
Fine. know well.
It's the passage to hell.
The Amityville Horror wasn't a huge hit with critics, although many in the horror circles place it in high regard. But it was a box office success, becoming one of the highest grossing independent films ever at the time. A remake came out in 2005 with names like Ryan Reynolds and Chloe Grace Moretz involved and earned similar critical and box office results, leaving the original film as the one with the lasting legacy. Critics say, dull and disappointing. The best that can be said for the Amityville Horror is that it set a low bar for its many sequels and remakes.
Son, nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Things really started to heat up in August of '79 with the release of the psychological war drama Apocalypse Now, which was directed, produced, and co-written by Francis Ford Coppola. The film features the likes of Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Martin Sheen, Lawrence Fishburne, Harrison Ford, and Dennis Hopper. It follows a captain, played by Sheen, on a secret mission to assassinate a Special Forces colonel, played by Brando, who has been deemed to be insane. After a grueling year of filming and an extended editing process, Apocalypse Now finally opened to rave reviews and big-time box office success, not to mention earning 8 Oscar noms including Best Picture and picking up 2 wins for Best Cinematography and Best Sound. Today, it's widely considered to be one of the greatest and most influential films ever made, with one of the more memorable lines ever spoken in a movie. It was courtesy of Robert Duvall's character when he said, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." Critics say Francis Ford Coppola's haunting and hallucinatory Vietnam War epic is cinema at its most audacious and visionary.
Science Officer Spock. Reporting as ordered, Captain.
Please sit down. Spock, you haven't changed a bit. You're just as warm and sociable as ever.
Nor have you, Doctor, as your continued predilection for irrelevancy demonstrates.
As 1979 entered its final frontier, aka December, Star Trek the Motion Picture blasted off into theaters 10 years after the series on which it was based went off the air. For the first installment in the film series, Captain Kirk, who's now an admiral working at a desk, is tasked with stopping an ominous alien cloud that's heading toward Earth, which he does by getting the band back together on the Enterprise. After studio execs were never really that happy with Star Trek the series during its initial run, it took success in syndication to finally get the ball rolling on a film around 1975. At one point, it turned into another series called Star Trek Phase 2 before shifting focus back to a motion picture.
Report one, sir. Mr. Decker.
Emergency alert. Emergency alert. Emergency alert.
Wormhole. Get us back on impulse power. Full reverse.
Emergency alert. Emergency alert.
The result, Star Trek the Motion Picture, wasn't a huge hit with critics or fans really, but it made just enough money after a ballooning budget to justify a sequel. And thankfully, because now there's a whole bunch of really good ones. Critics say, featuring a patchwork script and a dialogue-heavy storyline whose biggest villain is a cloud, Star Trek the Motion Picture is a less than auspicious debut for the franchise.
Dear Harry, guess what? I'm rich beyond my wildest dreams, but I haven't forgotten our deal. Here's that postcard I promised you. I bet you thought you'd never get it, huh? Your friend forever, Nathan. How do you like that? Promised me a postcard, then he sent me a postcard. Kid has integrity.
And finally, ending the year on a low note, but in a good way, was the certified fresh Steve Martin comedy The Jerk, his first starring role in a feature film. In it, Martin plays a naive kid from the country who decides to leave his sheltered life and experience the ways of the big city, a place where his simple-mindedness helps him, but also hurts him. Co-written by Martin and directed by Carl Reiner, this marked the first of 4 comedies the pair would make together over a 5-year span, including The Man with Two Brains.
I don't need anything except this. This ashtray, and that's the only thing I need is this. I don't need this or this. Just this ashtray. This paddle game. The ashtray and the paddle game, and that's all I need.
The film also starred Bernadette Peters as Marie, a role that Martin wrote specifically for her, especially considering that they were in the middle of a 4-year relationship at the time of filming. Critics say, crude, crass, and oh so quotable, The Jerk is nothing short of an all-out comedic showcase for Steve Martin. There it is, 1979. I don't know about you, but I'm inspired to go turn my car into a potential Hollywood star. We can just revisit some of these great shows and movies for inspiration. We hope you enjoyed this little trip back in time, and speaking of time, I'll see you next time.